What's up, locals? It's Mike and Kenzie coming to you live from the 775. Now, before we get into this episode, we have one small request. Please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of your favorite locals. We are in a new and improved studio that has taken us, I feel like, years at this point to create the way that we want it. And I wanted to tell you, because I talked to my mom about the chairs that we got. Mm-hmm. She said these are kid chairs. Because I showed her how they looked before we put the little pegs on them.
Yeah.
And she said that these would be chairs like in Harley's room. Like these are literally child chairs.
I can see that. I mean, we added some pegs. Everything we buy, though, is so fucking short. Our bed, our nightstands, apparently these chairs.
We live in a hobbit home.
Yeah, we are. If you and I have kids, they're not going to be tall.
No.
They're not playing basketball. Like, genetically, our kids are fucked for height, so.
They're going to be short, little, cute cherubs flying around.
Cute cheeks and squinty eyes.
Yeah.
And no culture.
And no culture.
So, we've been gone for a minute. A little life update.
We have been gone. Gosh, I feel like I just have developed so much more of a personality in the last couple months.
That's a strong statement. You better back that up.
What
How
do you mean?
so? Tell me more. What personality?
What do you mean that's a strong statement?
That's if I were to be in conversation with not you and just
and I
tell
say
somebody,
I've developed more of a personality.
Yeah, I just want to know where that's coming from. Like, explain that.
I just feel like I've been living a little more life in the last couple months. We have been getting into motorcycles. We've been traveling around, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I don't like the way you said getting into motorcycles, right? We're bikers.
We are bikers. I am officially a biker babe. And I feel so good about it. I have not been as passionate about anything.
I know. You're shopping for like leather gloves and leather vests and leather pants and leather everything.
I mean, my pants right now.
They are biker pants.
They're kind of like biker pants.
Or cheetah girl's cheetah sister.
Yeah. But I feel like I've just never felt like more
alive.
Well, yeah.
Badass.
I mean, yes, that, but like, I've never felt like I was meant to do something more.
Mm-hmm. Born to ride, if you will.
Yes, born to ride. But I feel like because my whole family, I've been learning a lot about my family lately, but like my whole family from my mom's side is really into bikes, and they've been biking for years. Like, it started with my grandpa Max and Grammy. And, you know, them taking trips to the UK, I think they went to Spain.
On bikes?
Yeah, they took like a 3-week trip and were just on bikes for 3 weeks, just traveling around Europe.
Technology's come a long way since then, so that had to be very uncomfortable. Probably a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, when I was talking to Grammy about it, she loved it, but she was like, that was too much time on the bike.
Yeah.
But just imagining, like, I don't know. I feel like it's really ingrained in my family to be on bikes and to have that experience. But yeah, I have never felt more myself. I've never felt more alive than riding a bike. Like, I truly feel like this is what I was meant to do with my life, with my time. Like, it also, like, the fit of, like, being a biker, like, the outfits, this is me.
It's cool.
It's cool. It's me. It's badass. Like, I just fucking love it. And I've never felt such love for an activity. Like, I love CrossFit, but I also hate CrossFit. You know, like, there's days after I do CrossFit and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why did I just put my body through that? But with a motorcycle, like, we came back. We've done like 6 trips on the motorcycle.
Well, we had Jada on the podcast, and that started to stir the interest in bikes. And then we went to the Redwoods with your family.
Yeah.
And rode your mom's little 500, this tiny little meep type of bike. It was like, I need more power.
It actually is amazing looking back at the video.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did we ride in the redwoods on that thing? Like, no offense to the bike, but like,
Yes, offense to the bike. That thing has no nuts to it.
yeah, that thing definitely. My mom needs to get on something with more power, I think, because I think being on the freeway in the redwoods on that bike was completely safe and fine. But now, like, I would never ride that bike in Reno on the freeway.
No, you could cruise around town in it.
Yeah.
But
I would never take it on the freeway.
there's no power to it.
No.
And I like to go hard and fast because I'm a biker now. No, it's so much fun. I love the experience of going, just accelerating past everybody. I mean, I've had one road rage incident with some crazy lady on the freeway that I told you about. That wasn't that cool. And I didn't understand why she was so upset.
That was like quick karma for you too.
Well, you were talking some shit like, why are you riding your motorcycle to the gym? And I was doing it in shorts like a jackass. And I'm going allegedly the speed limit. And this lady's like riding my ass. I don't move over because I see traffic ahead. And then all of a sudden I just slow down and she's like keeps coming closer and closer like she's going to rear end my tire. And so I look back at her. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then she like rolls down the window and she's like, I bet you pulled over to the side, bitch. Don't you wish you did? And she's just talking all this shit and flipping me off. And then she would roll her window up and like we'd move a little bit further in traffic. And she was next to me at that point. Wouldn't let me like go in front of her.
Yeah.
Would like intentionally block my lane to get over. And she just kept like window down, finger up, fuck you, bitch. And then she'd roll the window back up. And I was like, where is this coming from? What did I do wrong?
Well, people, I think, just hate motorcyclists, and they don't really respect it. They don't get it. Like, if you don't, I mean, here's the thing.
If you don't, you don't get it.
No, really. That is so true, though. Because I feel like before I rode motorcycles, I did not really care, like, at all. Like, I was just like, eh. But then, obviously, seeing Jada, like, do it and how cool she looked doing it, I was like... And, like, just seeing, like, another girl, like, obviously, like, my whole family's been riding bikes and it's fine. But, like, to see someone as a peer, like, doing her thing, so confident, like, it looked exciting and it looked more approachable. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm on bikes, like, I feel like I'm a better driver. Like, I feel like I'm more aware. Okay, maybe I'm not a better driver.
I would debate that. But
I do feel like I'm more aware when I'm on the road. And I do respect motorcyclists. Like, if I see them coming through, like, I am going to get out of their way. You know, they don't want to be around cars. No one wants to be around cars when you're on the motorcycle. So, like, I do get it. But yeah, some people like literally hate them and will have road rage with you on the freeway, which that was like a whole thing. I was like, do you really need to ride your bike on the freeway? But there was safer ways to go to the gym that day.
There were. But
lesson learned.
I don't get a motorcycle for safety, okay? I drive a car if I wanted safety. Besides that, we went to one of our best friend's weddings. He had two of them because there was an Indian ceremony and then traditional white person ceremony. Mm-hmm. Both were beautiful, but the Indian ceremony was absolutely awesome. But yeah, Indian wedding. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was like the coolest experience that I've ever had for a wedding, at a wedding. I was honestly impressed with like the pageantry of like the attire, like what they were wearing.
Big, bold colors.
Yeah.
The pageantry was awesome. One of the things that I noticed between Indian weddings and the traditional white people weddings that I've been to is that at like our people's weddings, if you will, you don't see anybody in like a really flamboyant outfit, right? No one outdoes the bride. A lot of the guys are in like black and gray suits. It's very conservative. Indian wedding, it's boisterous, flamboyant, so many different colors. Like if grandma's traveling from out of the country, she's like on a 15-hour flight from India. It's okay if she outscales anyone.
I noticed you said white people weddings.
Yeah. Like
it's American weddings. Why would you say white people weddings?
Because there are different weddings within American culture that are not like that. Like if you were to take a Mexican wedding, it could be like a traditional Catholic wedding. So I guess that's more religious if you were to look at it that way. That's just how I picture it because that's what I've seen.
I wouldn't like categorize it as like a white person wedding. Like I would say American
So
traditional.
we'll take white out of it. Conservative. And I'm not talking about politically. I'm talking about like socially conservative people. Like they're very buttoned up, very postured, and you can't like.
Why would you not say American though? Like I'm still confused why you're associating other nationalities with their weddings, but why are you not associating America with a wedding? Like there is an American traditional wedding.
What is an American traditional wedding?
What you normally see. What we saw, there was the Indian and then there was the American, right? Like why? I mean, I don't think that.
Where there's like
I don't think they said, oh, and the white person wedding is tomorrow.
Right.
Like it wasn't.
That
It
sounds
was
pretty
literally between a
discriminatory.
white person and an Indian person.
Right.
So how are you going to say it's a white person wedding? Do you know what I
Because
mean?
That's literally how I associate it in my head. It's not like a racialized context to it.
I know, but I'm having that conversation right now. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, like, why you associate it with white person when I think it's American traditional, not white person traditional.
Because I just feel
Because
like
people
there's
that are,
different-
but people that are
layers to it.
different races and ethnicities still get married in that American traditional way.
Okay, so I'll rephrase it then. An American traditional wedding can also look very different if they're Greek, if they're Italian. Like they do different things if they're Spanish, not Mexican, but Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the throwing of rice. The Jews will step on glass.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll smash, I don't know what it's called, but they put a little blanket on it and go, l'chaim, and smash it.
Mm-hmm.
And like they have different styles, right? I haven't been to any of those. I've been to, you show up, there's a ceremony, then there's a cocktail hour, and then you have like everybody's giving their speeches, and you're sat at the table with people that you don't really know, so you're kind of making small talk, and then hopefully like that passes soon enough, and then you get to like the dancing, and maybe they cut the cake. The last couple of weddings I've been to, I haven't seen anybody actually eat the cake. I see them cut it, but I don't see anybody eat it.
I just realized, did we eat the cake
No.
at Indian?
Yeah, see what you're doing now? Why would you call it an Indian wedding? There wasn't any cake there.
But did we eat the cake at the other wedding?
No.
Why didn't we eat the cake?
So I saw an interesting little fun fact on Instagram Reels. Apparently, in 2024, 80% of wedding cakes were fake. And what they'll do is they'll have like a cardboard cutout that they still put frosting on. And then there's one section of actual cake that they bake. And they put it in. So it's kind of like a pie chart.
Is it just for expenses? Like
It's cheaper. It's easier. There's less to go wrong with it. And like for the shot of like, okay, we're cutting the cake here. You can cut a slice. And then there's like one chunk out of the cake taken. And that's what you can eat. And it's much cheaper. And there's way less to go wrong. It's smart.
and way less to go around
I mean,
because we didn't have cake.
I don't care for wedding.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying that like the facts here. Like there was.
It sounds
they
like you want
definitely-
a wedding cake.
Yeah, I think I would want a wedding cake.
Why not like wedding brownies? Like
Yeah, I mean any wedding dessert, but I do. I mean, like I'm
any
just,
wedding dessert will do.
I'm just saying I personally would want to eat dessert. I realized I was like, I mean, I was drinking my dessert that night anyway, but
Little Miss Espresso Martini.
I know.
I had to keep my composure for a lot of it. I was like pacing myself because I had to give a speech and I didn't want to fuck it up. So that was fun.
Yeah, which you did amazing, and I totally did not record it, which
No,
I'm super
matters.
upset about it.
That's okay. That was meant for Brooke and Rahul, not anybody else.
I know, but it was so good.
Thanks.
Like it was a really great presentation. Yeah, I thought you did really well, and I was just so in the moment, like just watching you do it. And then after, I'm like, I didn't fucking record it.
If that was stand up, that was probably my best set.
Yeah. No, I really think it was. You had laughter. I think maybe someone probably shed a couple tears. I don't know. Maybe Rahul's parents did.
I don't know. I made Rahul welt up a little bit,
Yeah.
which was cute. And I was like, hey, stop it. You're going to make me cry.
Yeah.
He cries at everything, though, so it's fine. But no, it was a beautiful experience. I really enjoyed it. I want to go back to the Indian wedding because I noticed something.
Okay. What did you notice?
The dresses, like the bride's dress was beautiful. You can't take that away. But everybody's dresses were like top notch. They were amazing. They were like handcrafted, Rahul's sister had like Swarovski diamonds sewn it, or not diamonds, crystals sewn into it. It was heavy. It was like 20 or 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Like so much material, and it was so beautiful. And if you were to go to a traditional American wedding and you were to wear anything but like a neutral color or like a more conservative dress, people kind of look at you like you're an asshole. But at that wedding, totally fine.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, I mean, at that wedding, if you're not in Indian attire, obviously it was fine. But I do think I was noticing that there's some Indian attire that was worn that was like maybe a little bit more traditional. And then the more modern Indian attire, which I thought was like really beautiful, maybe a little bit more revealing Indian attire that we saw. But yeah, I think if you were to go to like an American traditional, there is like a certain style.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to show up in like
a bright pink suit.
Right.
Which I think you could do at other cultural American traditional weddings that aren't white people. I'm just saying.
Well, I think it depends on the theme, right? Like the in the wedding, there's usually a theme that's going on. There's usually like maybe a color scheme. And if you don't know of that color scheme, then you go the more conservative route of like not being too flashy, neutral, whatever. But I think that in the Indian wedding, we definitely saw that it was more colorful, it was more vibrant. It just was a really unique experience. But I wanted to walk you through, because do you remember all of the steps?
I don't remember step by step, but I remember all the rituals, and I thought it was super cool. It was kind of fun to watch everybody go, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. No, and it was a really long ceremony. Like Indian wedding ceremonies are, like, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, we were there for a while.
Hours.
Yeah.
I think if you do like a traditional Indian wedding, it's almost 5 days. That's what Rahul's cousin was telling me.
Yeah, well...
But he likes to fuck with me, so he could have been lying.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like usually 5 days. I think maybe a weekend, like 2 days, but... Because I feel like it's not... I don't know though. Okay, anyway. There was like 11 steps. And I didn't take the paper, so I looked it up. But I thought it was interesting. The first step, the arrival. So usually the arrival of the groom... and the bride happens on a horse or an elephant. So some kind of animal. That's
badass.
And I think that's why, like, they did, like, the car. What? The car?
Up in a Mustang.
Yeah, they pulled up in a Mustang. Wait, that makes sense.
It's also just a cool rental car.
Yeah, but like a Mustang, a horse. Okay, that totally makes sense.
Dressed up in flowers.
Yeah. So it was, which was super beautiful and like really cool. And that's like where the groom and the bride's family gets together. They dance, like usually in an American traditional wedding. The dancing usually happens after the ceremony. This is all happening before the ceremony.
Gets the people going. There's like a party.
Oh, yeah. And like the Indian dancing is like fun and cool and like everyone can do it. It's great.
Yeah, there's a DJ calling out the dance moves.
Yeah.
Like, change the light bulb. Shoot the 3. Like just doing all sorts of different fun. Like, all right, you guys don't know what you're doing, so follow me.
Yeah. No, I thought that was super fun. And then the second step is meeting of the families. So the bride's family greets the groom's family at the end of the first step, which is called the barat. And so this is the time where they were like in front of the building and they were exchanging their garlands.
Yeah. It's a garland. That's actually what they're called. There you go.
So that's the second step. And then the ceremony has begun from that point on. So then Ganesh Puja, the ceremony begins with a prayer to Ganesh. I think that's how you pronounce it, Ganesh. And so that's where...
Ganache, the delicious dessert.
Yes. But that's where we saw like the aunts and Rahul's sister like all praying with Brooke, which I thought was... It's cool to like see the steps and then remember like how it actually happened. Kanya Agman, I think that's how you pronounce it. This is the arrival of the bride. So she's escorted to the mandap, where usually her parents, the groom's parents and siblings were. So the stage. And when you walked into that room, you literally thought that you were in a fucking palace. Like it was so decked out and gorgeous and like, it just felt like royalty. Like you were walking into a royal Indian palace.
Well, they had beautiful crown molding with all these different elegant spirals.
Yeah.
And then they had like marble tile on the walls. Everything was just very elegant and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of Indian tradition in general. It's like, we're going to swag everything out.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be gorgeous.
Swaggy. Yeah.
That's how Rahul is too.
Yeah, totally. No, it's actually like really fucking cool. And then it's Jai Mala, the next step, which is the bride and groom exchange the sacred garlands. So I think they exchanged something when they were actually on that stage. And then the Akman. This is the purification of the bride and groom. They take water and drink it from the palms of their hands. Agni Pradipan, the sacred fire is lit, which this was a hilarious part because I remember seeing Brooke's dad, because they all have to touch it. So this step is the sacred fire is lit, signifying the power and purity of the ceremony. And I remember there was a part where
he like doesn't want to burn himself.
Yeah, they all have to like touch the fire. And I remember Brooke's dad like kind of touching it and then not touching it. And I remember Rahul looking at him like, you have to touch it. Like this next step can't, like we have to, in order to get to the next step, you have to put your hand in the fire.
I want to interrupt you for a moment. According to Rahul, that's like the most important part of the ceremony is the fire and interacting with it. It's basically like God witnessing the marriage. So if you fuck it up, in their culture, it's like you're not actually married. You fucked up the wedding. And it's a very expensive thing to redo. So don't mess it up.
Yeah. Oh, well, that makes sense because I remember Rahul being very serious. Like
stern.
Yes. Like
put your hand in the fire.
You're touching the fire. So that was really fun. Kanya Dan. Oh, wait, no. Before that, the Madhu Parka. I'm totally butchering these, but I'm trying my best. The bride's family offers yogurt and honey to the groom with a prayer, signifying that he will work to be pure, that he will work to be pure and kind. So they had all of this different food laid out at the front of the stage, and they're grabbing like bananas. They're grabbing, I don't really know. I just remember the bananas and the fruit. There was like a bunch of different fruit there. Do you remember what else was there?
No, but I remember there was a coconut with rose petals.
Oh, the coconut, yes.
And there's a blessing that you do over the coconut. It's given to the bride and the groom.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of our friends was like grabbing the coconut, and the person passing it around was like, no.
Yeah.
Don't take it. That's not
because you were just supposed to put your hand on it.
Yeah, it's like
and then, and then he's like he's like, thank you. And she's like, no.
Like, no.
No.
Have the rose petals. Get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, that was really fun. Okay, and then we're almost through it, but Kanyadan, the bride is given away to the groom by placing the bride's right hand in the groom's hand. The groom is now entrusted to care for the bride and love her. So when you think about like these steps that they're going through, like it's all similar, I feel like, to the American traditional where you're saying your vows, like
elaborate.
Like the vow, like not the vows of them writing it and speaking it to each other, but the vows that you would say right before
people.
Yeah, like in front of people.
I take you in sickness and in health.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, so I feel like these steps are kind of similar to the vows. Okay, Mongol. Oh wait, no, sorry, Sheila Rohan. The rock ceremony is for the bride to show her courage by stepping on a rock and proving she will support her husband throughout their life together. Okay,
stepped on no
I
rocks.
feel like it's okay. I know that it was on but they gave us a paper with all the steps of like what was happening, but not like why it was happening. This is really cool to read back and see like
the symbolism.
Yeah. This is so cool. The rock ceremony is for the bride to show her courage by stepping on a rock and proving she will support her husband throughout their life together. That is so cool. Okay, Mongol Farah. The bride and groom walk around the fire 4 times. Each time signifies something different. Duty, prosperity, love, and spiritual liberation. This is amazing. I feel like I'm going through this wedding all over again.
Mm-hmm. I love that other cultures loop in prosperity. It's like, we want you to have a healthy, happy marriage.
Yeah.
And make a shitload of money too.
Yeah.
Be prosperous.
Be prosperous, yeah. Saptapadi, the 7 sacred steps are the first that a couple takes together in their new life.
As man and wife. It's beautiful.
That's really beautiful. Mongol Sutra Sindoor Dawn. I'm totally butchering the names. A beaded necklace is tied around the bride's neck, and the sindoor, red power, is put onto the bride's scalp, symbolizing she is married. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember when Brooke, like, there was like a huge like smudge or something, and she was like, did this like kind of ruin my makeup? I remember her like saying something. She's like, is it messed up? Like, to the person that was putting it on. She's like, no, you're okay.
This is all part of it.
This is fine. Yeah. Kansar, the exchanging of the rings, is the final step to show the unity between the bride and groom. Ashirvad, the Pandit, gives the final blessing for the future of the newly married couple. And then we threw rice at them at the end, which was really fun. But yeah, I just wanted to walk through those steps. I did not actually, I just kind of copied and pasted that, but actually reading it through, that is so cool. Okay. So
I think that's beautiful. Like, they have an element of culture that I don't have. Like, I
really love this though. Like, I love the symbolism behind each of the steps. And even though it took a really long time, because there's a lot of prayer that's happening like throughout it all.
Almost like an auctioneer though. He's going through it fast.
Yeah, he is going through it fast.
I'm gonna have one, I'm gonna have two.
Yeah, no, that
I got 300 over here for the bride. All right. Like, that's how fast he's going.
Yeah.
And there's like at least 2, maybe 3 priests. It seems like
there's 2.
One main.
And apparently, I remember Rahul saying at the end they were kind of not on the same page of like how things should be going.
That's fun.
And so anyway, because one was like older, the other one was kind of like a younger priest, but
he's like a youth pastor coming on up.
Yeah. What does culture mean to you?
Culture is the achievements and traditions of people who recognize themselves as different from others, and they cluster in groups. And I think that's a culture. There's different styles. Everybody kind of spreads out as they will. There's different subcultures, but I think cultural groups, like, you can identify each other with similar traditions, similar rituals, similar beliefs, similar behaviors, attitudes, language. Like, that's all lumped into culture for me. And I feel culturally homeless. Like, my grandma is Hawaiian from Hawaii. My aunt and my mom both danced like hula and Tahitian, and they performed at luau's. And then there's me. And like, I'm watered down. I'm very white. I identify as white. If I were to call myself Hawaiian, that feels like I'm trying to reach for not being white.
Is your culture white?
I have not a tie to culture. I'm not tied to being Hawaiian. I don't feel like I'm inclined towards a specific culture. That's why I said I feel culturally homeless. Like, I see my grandma take such pride in where she comes from in Hawaii. And like, when Maui was burning, my mom was crying. All right. My mom didn't grow up in Hawaii, by the way, but seeing that level of like my mom was moved by that. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that and went, wow, that's really sad. I didn't cry when Truckee was burning or like Tahoe was burning. It was scary. It was sad, but I wasn't like culturally moved by that. And we lived there. Right. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm detached from that. And part of it is because I don't look the part. And so to try and call myself Hawaiian feels like such a stretch. It feels inappropriate, honestly. So that's where I feel culturally. I would like to have culture. I don't really have much culture.
So I'm really happy I talked to my dad earlier today because I had this same conversation with him. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get his perspective on what culture meant to him, what his culture was growing up, and how he instilled culture from his upbringing when he was raising me and Nate and Nick. I'll just start with like his definition of culture. His definition of culture. He grew up in Pennsylvania, and growing up as a young lad, he was surrounded by family members that are Pennsylvania Dutch, and they had thick accents to the point where, you probably couldn't really understand it. It's like it's kind of its own language in a way.
It's kind of English, kind of Dutch,
Yeah.
kind of German.
And when I talk to my grandparents, I definitely, and even any of my family members, I hear their accent, like it's a true accent. It's a different way that they talk. He talked about how his parents grew up very poor and they were blue collar workers, and they instilled the culture of like working really hard, being very family oriented. The food that they would have, my dad talked about having like really big breakfasts, and it would be like very meat driven, like a lot of like really big hefty meals.
Hefty.
Yeah. But one of the things that he was like, I always ate this thing called scrapple. I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Actually, yeah. One of the meals that he was eating was called scrapple, and he was like, I would always put like, so much syrup on it, but it's just like a mesh of all these different scraps of meat and pork that you would get from the butcher, and it's like this little patty. And I didn't know that. Like, I was like, okay, you kind of grew up with like haggis, like the form of haggis, like in Scotland, because that's kind of like what haggis is. It's like
stuffed intestines
and liver. And my dad would eat liver too. Yeah. Like liver and onion was like a staple dish that he would eat. Like, he's like, I always remember my dad telling me like, you're not going to leave this table until you eat your liver. And
how can you have any meat if you haven't finished your pudding?
But
other way around, but yeah.
Yeah, and like he talked about like his family was super sport oriented, so like, football was huge, basketball was huge. And then the culture of just growing up, like it was just really different back in the day. Like he, said that neighbors, if they saw you like carrying, a bunch of groceries, or if they saw you working on something, like they would literally come over and help. It wouldn't even be, you wouldn't feel guilty asking people for help. Like everyone was just, so willing to,
lend a hand,
be generous with their time. And, and I think like when he defined culture, it's the morals and values that you also grow up with. It's not just your ethnicity. Mm-hmm. It's not just tradition. It's a combination of everything. Like you grew up in a different culture than I grew up in. There are obviously similarities, but like the Hawaiian culture was not instilled in me. I loved going to Hawaii with my family, but like we did not practice any Hawaiian culture. You know what I mean? Like you guys had Hawaiian food that you grew up with. Like you grew up with more Asian food than I did. Yeah. You know but that's culture. Yeah. And so
fried rice. So food. Okay.
Right. Food. Like culture is a combination of things. And so I think when I was talking to my dad, and he's like, when I came over and you're away from family, it is harder to like keep the culture that you grew up with together because you're going away from that. And unless you're actively practicing it and instilling it in your lifestyle, your daily lifestyle, like it can go away. Yeah. And there's a lot of other things that influence and affect culture, but
like Applebee's.
Yeah. He basically was saying that he tried to take, the morals and values that he grew up with and instill that in us. And I feel like generosity, like the way that my dad grew up, I feel like that's something that I want to embody and instill in my children someday. Even like the freedom of playing. Like my dad was like, yeah, I would just be, all you had to do was just be home by 5. But like, back then they didn't have like the technology that we have today, but he would literally just go play in the forest, go on the railroad tracks, go to all these like Native American caves and like try to find like little spears, like, go walk with his dog, like to the river. And, there was so much freedom. And I feel like my dad, also was like giving that to me growing up too, like just freedom to go outside and play. Like I remember going outside and just like walking to my neighbor's house and playing with them and walking down the street and just doing like, and I do feel like that's the way, it's because of the way that my dad grew up. I haven't had a chance to talk to my mom yet about, the way that she was raised, but my dad said like once he came over to California and he met my mom and he met Tom, his best friend, one of his best friends, and he started kind of integrating with their families, there became new culture that
Right.
he was experiencing and adapting to. And so when I think back, it's like, yeah, I did have culture, but it really just wasn't like in my face as much, or like, I don't know. I just wasn't able to like identify it.
All right, you're giving me a new perspective on this.
Okay.
I'm learning today.
I know that
You're
it's
teaching me
a
something.
learning podcast today.
Okay, so then in that case, like the morality, the values of your community are also part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely part of culture. And like common experiences in childhood matter, I think a lot. In a small community, people are going to be far more likely to help. Because it's like, oh, there's Mrs. Jefferson.
Yeah, and he said that too. He said he grew up in a population of 7,000.
Yeah.
In the town of Lehighton. So
That makes sense.
you take that with like what it is.
Also, we like to think that the world has always been the way it has, but apparently the population of the entire planet has doubled since my dad was born, which is kind of crazy. Like when you were born, there were half as many people, and now there's twice. So it's just kind of interesting to think about that way, because I don't think that we can operate culturally the same. Like I think that when our parents were growing up, people were a lot more segmented. There were different cultures, like, oh, there's an Italian neighborhood, there's Chinatown, there's all these different like spots in big cities. And then in small communities, like that's the entire group, right? That's why the Amish are still the Amish. But the more that people like kind of move together and grow in these communities, like Reno's growing, it's continuing to blend and change. Like there's a culture to Reno, but the culture of Reno can also shift, right? Like how Tahoe shifted when a lot of folks from tech in the Bay Area started buying up homes and moving there. It went from like crunchy granola mountain town to like techie, hey guys, why isn't it open past 8? Like those people moved in. And it changes. It changes the culture and the dynamics. And I don't know if those type of communities can ever go back to like a crunchy granola town or the kid that's running down by the river with his dog. Our dog farted.
It smells so bad. I literally want to throw up.
You know what's sad is I smelled it and thought it was my breath, and I was like, that's fucking gross. And then it just kept staying. I was like, thank God it's not.
Why?
So-
Why does he fart so hard? Oh my
He's-
gosh.
He
It's
just loves us. It's his birthday.
Oh my gosh.
tomorrow.
It literally is horrible.
Happy birthday, Maverick. It's a
Okay.
little early, but you're a farty boy.
Oh my gosh. It's so horrible. Actually, I want to gag. Okay.
That's okay. But it's nice to see other cultures have like flash and flare. And I think what I'm lacking more than culture, the way that you put it, is tradition. I don't have traditions that I actively practice.
Yeah.
My dad has German influences. This sounds really weird to say it out loud. They'd play hide the pickle, which is like a
Yeah.
German Christmas game where you put the ornament. It's a little pickle ornament. No one's getting molested. But they put a little pickle ornament on the Christmas tree, and the first one to find it gets to open gifts. And then besides that, traditionally, like my mom tried to start a tradition that I thought was cool, and then everybody moved away. But on Christmas, we'd have a sushi platter, which was like, we're not Japanese, but it was just nice to have sushi. Other than that, I don't really have too many traditions. Do you have traditions in your family?
Yeah. During the holidays or birthdays, we would always write letters to each other. And
Which is very sweet.
yeah, it's something that I feel like it kind of like got lost as like we started getting older, but it's something like I love doing, and I feel like it's just a form of affection that just means a lot. Like when I do get letters from my family, like it makes me really emotional and actually kind of tear up, because it's just like you took time out of your day to, write me a really thoughtful, endearing, loving letter. Like it's just a form of affection that that was huge. Like writing letters was huge during holidays and birthdays and all that kind of stuff. Other traditions would be, I wrote them down. Hold on, let me get them. Because I thought about that. I was like, what? Grammy, because she's Norwegian. She always brought lefse during Christmas and Thanksgiving. So we would always eat lefse, and it's just a Norwegian flatbread. But it's like a very thin, almost like crepe style. And you put butter on it, sugar. You can put jam if you want, but literally I would just put butter and sugar and bread. and that's what we would eat. And it's really good actually.
What's it made out of?
Wheat and potato, I'm pretty sure.
Survival food. All right, everybody, we're having wheat, potato, sugar, and butter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's wheat and potato. Let me look it up really quick.
It sounds like wartime survival food.
Ingredients: a cup of butter, heavy cream, purpose flour. Yeah, potatoes.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that was one tradition that I remember always having. Going to church for Easter, for sure.
Yeah, I had that. Cultural. I'd say it was more Catholic, like it was religious more than anything.
Yeah. Tradition-wise, though, like I'm trying to think of other.
No, your family comes up to Tahoe. I feel like every
I know.
Christmas.
I put that too, like the annual family trips to Tahoe. Church every Easter. Yeah, I already said that. Sports, like watching football was huge because my dad, like that's something that he grew up with. Like it was literally Sunday night football was instilled in his family. Like his, East Coast, it's like really big sports fans. And even though I don't necessarily watch football now, like football was like a part of my life, even though I never played the sport because of my dad.
Yeah.
It was huge. So yeah, I think though, like moving forward, like the traditions that I want to keep and I want to grow, like I love cutting down a Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did that a couple years.
Doing it again this year.
Yeah, we're going to do it again this year. Last year was like, we're not going to Home Depot ever again to buy a Christmas. That was horrible.
That will not be a
Yeah,
tradition.
that will not be a tradition. But cutting down a Christmas tree, writing letters, like I think that stuff is like really special. Like I would love to continue the lefse, just because it's keeping the Norwegian side going. It's something that I grew up with and I definitely want to like continue.
I would love to continue the sushi platter.
Yeah.
I love sushi.
Yeah, well, like that's the thing is like you grew up with so much Asian food. Like you introduced me to Asian food and I love that.
Yeah,
but there's so
high blood pressure from all the sodium.
Yeah.
There's a lot of salt.
But I feel like you did grow up with a lot of Hawaiian culture. I think more than you're realizing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, your idea of culture was different before the conversation.
In my description, I
Yeah.
didn't include a lot of the things that kind of like opened my
Music.
perspective to it.
I mean,
That's
there's
a subculture to me, but also
Yeah.
there is cultural music. Yeah.
I think in America, and this is what I'm noticing about American culture, because I was like trying to define like what is American culture. I literally looked it up. I was like, what is American culture? And there was like three main things that I wanted to share.
Well, hold on. Before you share it, I have an idea of some American culture.
Okay, well, what do you identify as American culture? Or not identify, what do you define as American culture?
At our core, and when I say American, I mean the founding of the United States of America.
Yeah.
American. At our core, a rejection of authority, so a love of freedom. I think that there is a wildness to the exploration, like to be uninhibited, to be able to go out, like you can't tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like Elon's not American, he's South African, but he loves American culture and he's living it. Like, fuck you, I'm going to Mars, I'm going to start my own company, I'm going to go out on my own, and no one can tell me what to do.
It's like the Wild West of the world.
Yeah. Like that's what I picture as American culture, plus reality TV, and also just kind of setting the standard of what's popular. Like popular culture, I think we do movies the best, we do comedy the best, we do music the best.
Entertainment
In general. Everybody looks at us and goes, we'll take some of that.
Yeah.
That's American in my book.
Yeah.
And then stealing. We steal a lot. Like, hey, love that idea. Ours now. Great food. We're going to have the best pizza. Like,
Yeah.
you don't go to Italy for the best pizza. You go to, like, New Haven.
Yeah, I think that American culture also is like being multicultural.
Yeah.
Or at least it's kind of transcended that way.
I think that's what it is.
But no, yeah, it's not even that transcended that way. I really do think that America is full of different cultures. And I think that's the beauty of like the freedom that we do have here, because you can kind of like pick and choose like how you want to live your life. There's so many communities to be a part of. There's so many ideas to identify with. And I literally think it's the freedom to be able to practice and believe whatever the fuck you want. I think like that's the beauty of America, is that we do have the freedom to choose. But I almost think it's like diluting culture here, because there's so much.
Yeah, that's the sad part about a melting pot, is that the bottom burns. Like, it's not being constantly churned and stirred. It's just kind of neutralizing the flavor.
Yeah.
Like, this is totally a sidetrack and might be good to take out because it teeters on like inflammatory. But in France and Germany and England and Ireland, they're all going like keep France French. It's kind of like their version of Make America Great Again, but it's not. And it's because they're getting so much mass immigration that it's changing their culture completely. And they're saying like, this is unacceptable. We're losing what it means to be Irish or French or English because we're trying to be like, I'm forgetting the word, I'm blanking on it. We're trying to be inclusive. We're trying to be thoughtful. Mm-hmm. We're trying to be kind. But at the same time, they're not blending the cultures well at all. It's kind of a mishmash. If cultures assimilate in the melting pot, you're going to lose that flavor of spice. Like if you take something like really heavy thyme and sage and all these really pungent flavors, if you overload the palate, it's all going to taste the same. Mm-hmm. Like you're not going to be able to pull out those flavors. And I think that's what's kind of happened to American culture, is that we're a blend of so many different cultures that you can't really point to one thing and go, that's American. Maybe being loud and rude on public transit. Like you can pick out. That's
like a stereotype of Americans, though. Like I think
by other countries.
Yeah, by other countries. But I think like that's why culture is also like its morals and values too. And I think like what we can go back on is why. I think like what we can go back on is like why America was founded, and it's founded on like freedom. Mm-hmm. And so like I think when you think about America, like you think about freedom.
We're founded on freedom and tax evasion, which I love.
Yeah.
God bless America. Why do you think we have traditions? Like it's passing down information, it's passing down heritage, but what's
because
the
I
purpose?
think it makes culture more exciting.
Really?
I literally talked about that with my dad too, and that was actually his answer. I'm not gonna take that one for myself. But he literally said like traditions make your culture more exciting. It makes it more meaningful. And I could not agree more with that. Like when there's certain traditions like hide the pickle in the Christmas tree, like it's just fun. Like it, you know what I mean? When you're cutting down a tree for Christmas, it's better than going to fucking Home Depot and buying it.
Yes.
You know, it makes it more special and exciting.
What I wonder is how many cool traditions were lost, because kind of like my family, they weren't passed down to the next generation. So I'm wondering, like my great-grandparents, what did they not pass down to my grandma? Because she has a lot of traditions and culture that she brought. Mm-hmm. She passed them down to my mom and my aunt, who both admittedly tried very hard to pass those down to their children. I just didn't take it. I was like, no, I'm white. That feels weird. I'm not going to do that.
Because I think you associated your ethnicity mm-hmm. with culture, even though it's in your blood, that you have Hawaiian blood. Like it's not like you have no Hawaiian blood. Like
right.
Your eyes and your face is a little bit of.
It's something.
It's something. It's a little bit of
what it is, but it's something.
Like yes, the color of your skin is white. The color of my skin is white. But I think that's where, like that's what I'm saying. Like when I told you earlier. Remember, I was like, I was called an uncultured swine mm-hmm. growing up multiple times, actually.
Great burn.
Still. It was a trending bird, I think, back in my day. But I took that so to heart because I was like, I am a white person. Like, what kind of culture do I have? And I just literally associated culture with like ethnicity that was not white. And I think that's where, and clearly you did too.
I have two things about tradition that I want to talk about, because I feel like there are these traditions that we do and we don't really understand why we do them, but we still do them. Mm-hmm. We touched on one of them. We're going to go back to it. But when it comes to Christmas, stockings. Like
that's a tradition.
It's a tradition that makes no fucking sense. Like if you have actual stockings, not Christmas stockings that have been like appropriated to what they are now. Like those are cold, dirty, wet socks that you're hanging.
Doesn't that tradition come from like the Dutch? No.
I want to ask.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I'm interrupting you.
But they're cold, dirty, wet socks drying on the mantle in front of a fire, and somebody's putting gifts in them. That doesn't make any sense. What does make sense is putting coal in a sack by the mantle to feed a fire to keep everybody warm. So like getting coal in your stocking makes way more sense than getting a present in your stocking. That just seems gross. If you're like, hey, I put a gift in your sock for you. Like, there you go. Like, why does that happen? Whose idea was that? The culture of the Christmas tree, the tradition of the Christmas tree, and its beautiful shamanic origins. So I wanted to talk about this because I think it's so cool that we go outside, cut a tree down, bring it inside, decorate it, and then put gifts under it. And I was wondering, why does that happen? And it's from this Siberian tradition where right as they started outlawing shamanic religions, shamans would creep up in the middle of winter during the winter solstice and drop down during like a cold night. They would always come at night as shamans, drop down through the chimney and deliver these little red and white psychedelic mushrooms to families. And that's how they would meet God. And part of like the reindeer that gets associated with Christmas. So these mushrooms tend to grow under Christmas trees, like little presents. And these reindeer will also eat them and get high as fuck. And so the shamans would harvest reindeer pee, and a lot of the cultures around there also herd reindeers. So like Mongolia, Siberia, both very similar people, similar religious like roots. And that's where you get the Christmas tree, where you bring this tree inside and this mysterious character comes down in the middle of the night, leaves you presents, and somehow God is involved. And there's also reindeer. That's like the weird tie.
Yeah.
And these little mushrooms are red and white. So you get those Christmas colors.
Yeah.
But that's the origin of the Christmas tree.
And where does that come from? Siberia?
So like the coldest, most bitter, harshest environments to live in, where Mongolia and Russia connect. And it's just like a frozen tundra. Like it's very harsh to live in.
But that has now infiltrated like anyone that celebrates Christmas all around the world.
Yeah.
That's a crazy like tradition, ceremonial type shit.
Mushrooms used to be part of like original American Christmas cards in the 20s and 30s. Like all the way up until the 40s, and they stopped putting them in there.
Why? Was it considered psychedelic in the 40s?
So there was some kind of cultural transfer that no one really understands of like, why did this get taken and then like dropped? But that's also kind of like where elves come in. Like it gets very mystical and spiritual and psychedelic, and they're like, that isn't really the commercial Christmas we're trying to sell. We want people to buy toys. Like that's, I think that's the abandonment of that. But yeah, you can look it up. The origins of Siberian Santa Claus. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so then it's like, is it okay to kind of like take things from... So this was the question that I had about culture. Because when you're creating like your own culture and like tradition within your family...
Yeah.
And I'm like not trying to like culturally appropriate, like that's not my intention, but like I want to create something. Like I want to create culture for myself. Do you think that's possible? Like, do you think it's okay to pull different things and like create that tradition within your own family and practice that? Like, where does it become inappropriate?
That's a good question. I don't know I feel like Kamala Harris. That's a really good question. Thank you for asking me that. I don't have an answer.
I grew up with a single mother.
I grew up in a middle-class home, No. Religion crosses the gap. That's something that everybody can kind of just take up. Like if I wanted to be Muslim tomorrow, my Muslim brothers would welcome me with open arms, and they would probably ask me to change a few of my ways. But you would be accepted. Same thing with Christians. Like a lot of different religions are like, yeah, come on over. Like follow our rules, be disciplined, live our culture. You're more than welcome to. Outside of that, it starts to get a little weird Because then it's like, is this racially charged? Is this something where you're just kind of going, oh, it's cool and I want to take some of it? At the end of the day, like, is it really a problem? Is it harming anyone? I don't think so. Like, if white people want to have dreads, cool. It's not really for me, but I don't think that a specific culture can say those are ours.
Like the mullet. It's like if
you don't see a whole lot of black people with mullets, but you do see Polynesians with mullets. You see Scandinavians with mullets. You see white trash with mullets. You see a lot of different mullets. I saw Indian people with mullets. Actually, the priest at Rahul's wedding had a mullet. And I was like, hey, sweet haircut.
I know, I saw that actually.
And it's like, this is a cultural thing. And I was like, oh, well, I like it anyways. I'm not appropriating yours. Yeah. I don't know. Cultural appropriation, like, doesn't really bother me because take it. Take what you want. Don't be a dick about it.
Because I also think there's like...
If you truly appreciate it.
Yeah, if you truly appreciate it and you're celebrating it and you're also attributing it to that culture, that's how you keep it alive. Well, like, that's the part of, like, the things die because you don't practice them. Things die because you don't spread it. Like, I'm not saying it's okay to, like, have an Indian wedding when you're white. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like if you want to keep the culture and traditions alive, you have to actively practice it.
And pass it forward.
And pass it forward.
I don't understand
and
where
celebrate
the line
it.
is. Where's the line with cultural appreciation and appropriation? Because I feel like one is almost poking fun. Like, if I were to dress up as a Native American for Halloween, right? Like, obviously I'm not a Native American. Am I offending anybody? Maybe. Probably. Is it meant to offend? No. Do I appreciate Native American culture? Yes. I made an art piece about it, and I'm not one of them, but I think it's a really neat. It's many different cultures. It's not the same peoples.
Yeah.
So where's appropriation and appreciation? Like, I don't really see the line. It gets blurry, you know?
Yeah. I just thought about this too.
Yeah.
Like, the cool thing about America is that you can practice different cultures and religions and ceremonies and traditions. What other country, like, would you be allowed to say that I fucking hate this country and that it should burn? And then also be able to, like, live your life without any ramifications. Like, you can't... Yeah. I'm just saying, like, you can't say that in Russia. I don't even think you can say that in Canada.
You don't have freedom of speech in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I take that for granted. I'm still caught up on this appropriation, appreciation. Like, I'm going to ask that of the audience. They should be thinking about that.
I mean, here's the thing is we're obviously not experts in culture, but going to the Indian wedding and celebrating our friends and seeing just how beautiful it was and appreciating it, and even just, like, reading back about the steps and, like, what each step really symbolized, it's something that just got us thinking of, like, okay, well, I want to take pride in something like that. Like, I want to take pride in my own culture and my own beliefs and have tradition. And so it just, like, got us thinking, and we wanted to talk about it. But I think it's important, like, especially with, like, the holidays coming up, you know, it's like there's certain traditions that people have, like, even, like, getting together for Christmas is, like, a really big deal for my family, because it's like it's really just the only time that we see my family all together at once. Like, I really don't see my family, you know, I see my immediate family, but, like, I don't have, like, my aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, like, grandma, not grandparents, but, like, cousins. Like, we're not really all together often throughout the year. And so it's like, that's our time to, like, really be together and see each other. Anyway, I think it just got us thinking. I don't think it's bad that we're talking about this. Like, I'm actually really happy that I talked about it, because it had me have a conversation with my dad and asked him, like, how, like, I know how my dad grew up, but just hearing, like, details of that, like, his perspective on culture and, you know, how his parents grew up and, like, what they instilled in him. Like, I think it's important to know those things and to keep those things alive. Keep some history alive.
I agree. I learned some stuff today. That was cool.
I did too. I feel like we went on a conversational journey. And I did want to ask, though, what is the thing that you wanted to save for this podcast that you were so reluctant to talk to me about?
Oh, no.
Because you wanted to get my true reaction.
We're going to save that for like a different thing.
Really?
Yeah. It doesn't tie into any of this. It's either like a conversation starter if we do like another episode.
I've literally been waiting.
You've been building up to this moment, and this is the banger. This is not going to knock it out of the park with a home run. No, it's not happening. But I'll leave you on a fun fact. I've been seeing this all over the internet about don't touch receipts. Have you been seeing that? Mm-mm. So apparently receipts, like the heat resistant paper, the heat press paper that they're printed on, like terrible for your endocrine system, fucks up your like sex hormones. They're like Paul Saladino, all the people that I love to follow. But like leading medical experts are also saying these are disrupting your hormones. Don't touch receipts. So with that being said, either ask for a digital receipt, maybe get your sleeve out and pinch it and then throw it away. Don't touch it because it can like absorb through the skin. And if you do touch it, wash your hands. So the people that are like cashiers that are pulling receipts all day, like that's really bad for you.
I mean, that's kind of like, why is that all of a sudden coming out now? And like, are other things similar to receipts that we shouldn't be touching?
There's a million and one things that we interact with every single day that have forever chemicals that are in our environment.
I know. I feel like there's always something new coming out. The color in Gatorade.
Oh, the dyes.
Or the dyes.
And they're renaming them so that they can keep putting them in. Yeah, because like red.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, red.
Oh
40,
my gosh.
Yellow 5, all those. Because they're getting banned, so they're like, well, yellow 5 is banned, so why don't we call it something different? Yeah, good times. But that's for another episode. And it's also, as much as you try to like take care of your body,
it's never enough.
It's never enough. You can't do it perfectly. There's too much shit in this world. So enjoy your cultural foods. Enjoy your traditions. Have fun. Carry those cultures forward. And if you die early, just make sure you pass it on. Hell yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.